So I've been wanting to check out this game for a while, Tormented Souls, the self-proclaimed return of classic survival horror. The second game released recently, so I thought now's the time to dive in. Nobody really talks about this game. I know it's pretty low budget, so I honestly had my expectations somewhat low. Like I was expecting like a 6 or 7 out of 10 level experience. I at least knew the atmosphere was going to be cool, and it seemed like a genuine passion project to replicate that old Resident Evil remake feel. But outside of that, the character missing an eye, and this Resident Evil 8 Heisenberg's factory looking enemy, that's all I knew going in. Let me tell you, this game blew my expectations out of the water. If you like survival horror at all, especially classic Resident Evil, you literally have to play this game. I am so serious right now. This thing is a near masterpiece. I will save some specifics and story spoilers for later on, because you should definitely experience this for yourself if you haven't. So off the rip, we have this menu with some cozy piano music. Dude, the soundtrack in this game is actually so great. It's insane. There's no difficulty option, and that can go either way, but in this case I feel the difficulty is pretty perfect actually. Starting up the game, we establish all of this game's 3 major downsides to lower our expectations. We are introduced to one of the dumbest protagonists of all time, Caroline Walker. Homegirl here has no thoughts, head is empty. There is such a dissonance between the information we as a player decipher versus what Caroline can manage to get through that thick skull of hers.
Something very strange is happening here, Father. I don't know exactly what, but something is definitely not right.
It actually gets quite frustrating how non-existent her motivation for anything she does is, and how slow she is in piecing together the mystery. The voice acting is egregiously bad.
A letter for me? I never receive letters.
Possibly intentionally so due to the game's desire to be faithful to classic Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and while it is charming and funny, it ultimately takes away from the otherwise compelling narrative and strong atmosphere.
Where can I find Dr. Williams' office?
You can find Dr. Williams' office on the 2nd floor of the West Wing. The West Wing. The West Wing.
Then there's Caroline's cinematic character model, which sticks out and is the most low-budget looking thing in the game, because everything else looks really high quality. Anyways, Caroline gets a letter in the mail containing a mysterious photo, and immediately decides to head all the way over and enter the place at night? Girly pop, get a hotel and wait for the sun to come out.
I need to know what's going on.
Anyway, she gets bonked on the head and then wakes up naked in a tub with a tube in her mouth. The tone is so right. Look at this lighting, straight out of Resident Evil Remake. Caroline wakes up missing an eye, and her reaction to that is,
my eye had been removed. Why? Why would someone do such a thing?
Anyways, we learn the basic mechanics and move on. Man, it feels so good to move around in tank controls. This might honestly be the best camera system in a survival horror. It combines the fixed, creative camera positions of RE Remake, the cinematic movements of Silent Hill 1, and the following of the character, like in something like Code Veronica. The Wildberger Hospital, it's really more of a mansion, is already an all-time video game location for me. Of course, it very much evokes the Spencer Mansion, but in its level design I feel like it has more in common with the training facility from Resident Evil 0, which I think is a really good segment. A lot of people just say Resident Evil 0 goes downhill after the train, but the training facility is really good, I think. The Spencer Mansion is more about slowly unlocking all these different doors, whereas the Wildberger Hospital and training facility unlock chunk by chunk, establishing a lot of puzzles that you will have to keep in mind. It can be a bit of a struggle getting a key item and having to trace in your mind the puzzle that it's used for that you happened to stumble upon an hour and a half ago. I loved getting that feeling again of having to slowly learn and memorize the layout of a map like this. Again, the use of atmospheric music tracks in all these different rooms is just so amazing. This main hall, dude, oh, it's so great. The atmosphere is so good. This is top 3 along with Resident Evil Remake and Evil Within in terms of cozy cozy, spooky vibes. Something that I didn't see coming with this game is the fact that it's scary as fuck. The enemies are so off-putting and unsettling, and they never stopped being so for the entirety of the game. The twisted flesh and metallic elements make for a freaky visual to stumble upon. Sound plays a big element as well. Just walking into a room and hearing some metallic clanging immediately raises your anxiety. You just don't want to move, but you are forced to walk forward and face your fears. Being completely engulfed in the pitch black, while a stressful ass ambience is clanking on in your ears, is so genuinely intense. Just the darkness itself can literally consume you if you don't have a light. That's a real gameplay mechanic. Because of this, you can't fight in the dark unless you find some candles to light up. You'd think darkness is an easy go-to in terms of making things scary, but I don't actually see games utilize it nearly as well as this game does. Maybe it's the camera that makes it effective, seeing your character fully engulfed in pitch black darkness. There are also some genuinely good jump scares that are not overdone. My favorite are these subtle, almost hard to notice, freakish visuals that occur in the dark. There's also a lot of disturbing set dressing as well. It's very Silent Hill 1 feeling. There's also a lot of classic flavor text, but some repeat a bit too much. Combat is pretty straightforward. As long as you keep your distance from enemies, you'll be fine. Although they can close the gap pretty quick, and their attacks have a surprising amount of range to them. One enemy type has a long-range attack that is pretty BS and hard to avoid. Enemy variety is extremely limited, especially visually. Although that's never really been an issue for me in games like this. It's nice that you have melee weapons, and this is useful for when enemies are downed but not out. Sometimes though, enemies will just barely be able to get up and hit you before you finish them off. There's never really opportunities to avoid enemies, as they're way more of a danger to have around than Resident Evil zombies. My advice is definitely don't be too frugal with ammo, as you get way more of it than you do healing items. There's no limited inventory, which is fine because there's still plenty of meaningful backtracking in solving puzzles and unlocking new areas. Story-wise, there's quite an interesting plot afoot as you search for information about these lost twins and uncover a quite dark storyline. Diary entries and notes are quite well written and up to par with classic Resident Evil. Every now and then you'll encounter this priest who is accompanied with some DMC4 sounding ass music. This is always a break from the intensity as we get more horrid voice acting and we get our next objective laid out for us. Of course, there are save rooms and limited saves, which is a feel-good thing to have in a survival horror. Something I really like with these save rooms is that when you save your progress, Caroline actually narrates progressions she's made using the tape recorder. This is something I've always wanted to see in a survival horror game. Because you know, in Resident Evil, when they're typing on the typewriter, like, what are they even writing? And in Silent Hill 1, when you first save, Harry mentions that he wants to write down notes of his experience. And I thought it would be cool, maybe in the Silent Hill 1 remake, if you actually got to read the notes that he writes down with each save. So it's cool that here, whenever you save after making some big progress, the character goes over the information they've learned, even if that information is extremely limited because Caroline is a fucking dumbass.
I don't know what the hell is going on in this place. Why would someone do such a thing? Who could do such a horrible thing to a child?
There are a lot of puzzles, and save for maybe one or two leaps in logic, puzzle solutions were contextual with surrounding information or followed a rhythm that once deduced were fun to follow through. Unique elements such as mirror dimensions and time travel make for some really fun back and forth sequencing for puzzles and some story elements. So yeah, overall this is a peak survival horror title that manages to establish its own identity. And yeah, please go play it. Now I'll be diving into some specifics, including story stuff, so yeah. One of my favorite puzzles was when I walked into the operating room and saw that there was a switch to turn off the lights, and I thought, why would you want to do that? Leaving and entering the last room left to explore, I hear metal clanging and get ready for a fight, only to see that it's coming from the operating room through the window. The Padre is also here just chilling, and well, I'll let Caroline describe all of this.
Father, what's going on here? Why is that weird man walking around the operating table with that weird chandelier in his hands?
What are you talking about, child? I don't see anything.
It's pretty chilling when he says that he doesn't even see the monster. It's very Silent Hill. Now obviously that guy wasn't there in the operating room before, nor when you come back in, but it also wasn't dark, so there's your clue to turn the lights off. Now as for this chandelier guy, unfortunately he isn't a boss like I thought he'd be, although I thought I'd give a shot at replicating whatever ritual he was doing, circling this dead body, and what do you know, it actually worked. Super cool sequence. Another cool sequence is when the priest's arm gets ripped off for some reason, and then you go into a mirror dimension and you fix a mannequin version of him, which translates to the real world. It's pretty cool. Another thing I didn't see coming was this ghost enemy, who I initially tried to kill, but you can't kill it, which is kind of BS since you'll just waste a bunch of ammo. I didn't expect it to be a recurring presence too, that comes in at random times in random places. Kind of similar to the One Dangerous Zombie mode in Resident Evil Remake. It's pretty easy to foil, however. If you walk into a room and hear her music, you just walk right back out, wait a little bit, and then she'll be gone when you re-enter. Although one time I was zoned out, completely missed the music cue, and was in a really dark area, and just seeing that ghost just charge in out of nowhere freaked me the hell out. In the last part of the game, when you enter the crypts down below, it's super dark down there for the whole last hour or so of the game. Resources get pretty tight, and I was genuinely unnerved the whole time. These freaky ass radiation suit enemies come into play as well. I love the looping door room that you can optionally stumble upon, which leads to the antidote item, which is used to get the best ending. Now when it comes to the story, we learn of this cult who was trying to cultivate twins to sacrifice to this weird flesh god in the basement so they can be cured of their radiation poisoning or something. There's actually quite a lot of density in this story with all the different notes and stuff, so just coming off of a first playthrough, there are some things I'm still confused about, and I still have no idea who sent Caroline the letter at the start of the game. Although maybe I did miss something. The majority of the diaries surround the family of the twin girls that Caroline is trying to find. The diary of one of the twins, Anna, is particularly compelling, and it all reminds me of George and Lisa Trevor from the Resident Evil remake. Now, of course, as easily guessable from the literal opening scene, obviously Caroline is one of the twins. The eventual reveal is so laughable, but strangely it's cathartic to finally get it done with, and this reveal strengthens the story from that point forward, as Caroline now actually has a compelling motivation to find her sister and put an end to this whole family cult drama.
I am Emma, the girl who fell from the bridge 14 years ago.
Another obvious twist is that, of course, the literal only other person here is revealed as the villain and the cult leader. Something I didn't see coming though was that Caroline time travels back and cuts out her own eye in order to open the vaults. Seeing that scene come together gave me the chills. It was actually genuinely really well done. The fuck-ass ghost that's been haunting us this whole time is Anna, Caroline's sister. You can leave her there, kill her, or inject her with the antidote if you found it. It all leads to this awful final boss fight that's pretty easy aside from its BS long-range attack. An ending where you leave Anna as a ghost, she'll attack you at the very end. If you mercy kill her, Caroline gets to leave, but the mood is very somber. In the true ending where you give her the antidote, she returns to human form only to die. Though this, for some reason, unveils bolt cutters, which you'll immediately think of the cell from earlier in the time travel sequence where you're unable to free a young Anna, but now you can. Caroline takes Anna back to the future and withholds the truth of the situation for now. I can't lie, the implications of this ending have me terribly excited for the sequel, to see how the sisters' bond develops and what's going to inevitably go wrong. And obviously there's so many improvements that the second game can make from this incredible blueprint. Shit, now my expectations are super high. Like there's no way Tormented Souls 2 isn't a 10 out of 10, right? Can't wait to find out, but yeah, that's Tormented Souls, a haunting tale that's a masterpiece of atmosphere, an overall absolute gem of a game that proves to indeed be the return of classic survival horror.